And joining us now for more on this topic that I think is just going to get more and more important as time goes on is Washington Times columnist Kelly Sadler, former chief of staff at the National Security Council Fred Fleitz back with us, and presidential historian Doug Wead. Thank you all for coming on this morning. This is a topic that is taboo to talk about. We are not making fun of the president. We are just trying to address something. We're just trying to address what our eyes are telling us. Doug, from a historical perspective, we saw how the nation sort of made a joke out of Jerry Ford, which is ironic because he's probably the most athletic president we've ever had. He fell down a staircase in 1975. It was pouring rain that day. He had leather shoes. The stairs were metal. It could happen to anybody. He was 62 years old at the time, so much younger than Biden. This feels, with Joe Biden, this feels different, doesn't it?
Yeah, this is very different than all of them. We could go through the litany. William Henry Harrison was the oldest president throughout most of American history, and he died within 30 days of his inauguration. And then Reagan was the oldest president. But think of this. Joe Biden, going into the White House, is older than Ronald Reagan was coming out of the White House. That gives you an idea of where we are. And there's a big difference between Eisenhower and Reagan and Biden, and that is the press conferences. Eisenhower gave very aggressive press conferences. Reagan was cross-examined like he was in a courtroom relentlessly and waited till every question was asked. This president is being kept under wraps. I disagree with one of the statements of one of the earlier guests on, who said if he had cognitive problems, we would know. I worked in the White House, and the president's health is a carefully guarded secret. You're going to be the last to know.
Yeah, that was my gut thought on that as well. I think, it's not, they're going to guard that secret. Doug, to your point, when Reagan didn't really understand a question, he would say, "There you go again," and he'd make everybody laugh. He had a suaveness to him. Fred, final question. The world is going to be watching that press conference on Thursday that Kelly just mentioned. Everybody will be watching. Do you expect this to be a Broadway production without the curtain and the audience? Do you expect the questions to be pre-approved with very little follow-up?
I do. Every press conference or so-called press availability Biden does has been rigged. I don't think Newsmax or Fox News are going to be allowed to ask a question. Agreed. I think they're all going to be scripted. I think it'll be very brief. And, one thing Biden has done to pull off these events is that he practices that's how he got through the debates, I believe, why he looked fairly competent during the debates. This will not be the real Joe Biden in this press conference.
It's going to be interesting. Panel, come back and see us. I think this is a very serious conversation that we will need to have again. But don't forget, the press covered for FDR. He was in a wheelchair for 4 terms. He was elected 4 times, and 95% of Americans didn't know that we had a man at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue that was in a wheelchair. And I think some of the press, the left-leaning press, are doing the same thing for Joe Biden right now. Kelly Sadler, Fred Fleitz, Doug Wead, we appreciate it. Thanks so much.
And Doug Wead, your excellent service in government at the White House and in the private sector.
I think it'll depend a lot on the president. And I went into the Oval Office and Barbara was there. Jared Kushner said to me, and I've seen that all through history, they want cheap labor.
And I mean really behind the scenes, but Doug is respected by everybody. So he had access to everybody.